Hey everybody, Lawrence here with Third Basement Terrain, coming at you with another one. Now this is going to be a continuation of my winter theme builds that I have been doing lately. And for this one, I had an old Michael's dollhouse that I got on clearance a couple years ago. It was in one of those bins of stuff we'll get to eventually. But I actually got to this. I went from an old abandoned Michael's little wooden Halloween dollhouse thing to this. I'm really happy with how this turned out. It was fun, but before we get to the whole building stuff, I want to warn you, it is a little bit long because I didn't want to go to a two-parter, so just hit the playback speed, increase it a little bit, you'll be good. And also, before we get to the actual build, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to my patrons whose help every month is greatly appreciated, and I can't thank you enough. Alright, let's get to it. And of course, this is the base of the Halloween house from Michael's that I got a while ago. Now, I had to pull a bunch of stuff off of it. If you want to see how I did that, you can go to... I'll put a link down in the description of how I stripped all the extras off. But I'd also made a template for the foam because this house is just too short for what I want. So, I need to cut out a thick piece of foam here. And this template was made with the first time I used this dollhouse, and I never throw templates out because eventually I might use them. And guess what? I'm using it again. Making templates like this just speeds up the process so much because it would be a real difficult individual pieces and just a pain in the butt. So, template. And of course I have these shingle jigs I got from Dungeons by Hand. I had already cut out a bunch of blanks that fit into the jig, and now I'm just following along to all the individual shingles. This makes cutting out shingles just so much easier and so much faster. So if you can, get a shingle jig. But again, I'm just tearing off the extra pieces, popping it out, and there you got your shingles. And of course here I'm using a plastic grout brush, and I want to do all the texturing to the shingles themselves before I actually have to put them on the building. For me, it just makes it a little simpler. There I got all my texture and cutting it out as thin as really thin, and boom, I have a bunch of shingles. And I do that over and over again. And of course now I'm pulling the chunk off here. And I need to glue it on because, like I said, the house is just, for me, for what I want to do, it's too short. So, glue it on, boom. Now the house is as long as I want it to be. Not that hard. Now, I was given these fan pieces, this wooden fan from a patron, and they make for great windows, or, like the wrought iron windows part. So, I'm going to cut it down small enough, cut down the tops of it, just for the window frames, I guess, whatever. But there you go. And of course now I'm using some small strips of textured foam that I had made a long time ago and just kept in a bin that I'm using for the window frames. And as you can see, I'm laying it over top of each other and then just cutting the angles. Doing it this way will actually make it match up almost perfectly. Sometimes it's a little off, but not that big a deal. So boom. And just glue it on real quick, brush on the wood glue that I'm using, and put it together, and you have your window frame. And your window is built. I mean, pretty easy, honestly. I said, don't throw out templates. Well, I had used this template a long time ago again to make a chimney substructure for a house build, and I never threw it out. So I'm using it again because I need a chimney. Now, it's a little too thick, so I cut it in half. Or roughly in half, whatever. And I'm just tracing on where I want it to go. Just to make sure once I put the glue on, I will place it in exactly where it's supposed to go, if that makes any sense. But so, brush the glue around, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, just take the substructure and then I'll stick it on in place and let the glue dry. And my chimney is started. And of course I want to get started on the door for the place too. So I'm using some cardboard, some cardstock or whatever you want to call it. I got out of a box of canned cat food, and just to the size that I want. Make the door however size you want. I think this is like 1.5 by 2 inches, whatever. But no, a bunch of wood glue, and I have a really thin sliced piece of foam there. And just trim off the excess here real quick. And you got the starts of a door. Now I'm also taking the leftovers of that thin piece that I trimmed off, and I'm going to start trimming the banding and part of the door handle for this. Take them off. Use my grout brush to texture it. Use the pencil to actually trace in some lines for individual boards. I prefer this method to doing individual boards because it's just so much easier. Cut up the banding. Glue it on real quick here. Phew, boom, got some banding on. Get the second piece done. Making doors is relatively simple if you let it be. And of course, the first part of the door handle. Boom, door. Now, of course, I want to glue the door on. I got it made, might as well get it on, It's just another, layer of wood glue on the cardboard, and then just slap it into place where I want it. Make sure you don't put it on upside down. Of course, now I want to get the door frame on. Cut a small piece here for the top real quick and glue onto where this part's going to stick on. Pretty easy. And then I'll get the side pieces and just trim it in the exact same way that I trimmed the windows. Cut at an angle, put on some glue, put the piece in. I'm going to leave it a little bit extended to the bottom because I can just trim those off real easy. I'm more concerned with getting it mashed up at the top corners. But again, glue that second piece on, take a blade and trim off the excess on the bottom, and we're done. You've seen me already use some of this, but the same as with bricks, I make a bunch at one time, so I don't have to continually make it whenever I need to use it. I just have to open up the tub and pull it out. And again, I just want to go around and start adding a bunch of the timber framing around the building just to get it started. I'm not going to do all the framing or timber part work right now, but this is all textured wood, textured foam, and just putting it around the corners and anywhere that it's going to be going straight up and down like that. And of course, now I want to start adding the bricks. I'm going to do 2 layers of brick on the bottom. I would suggest that if you do brickwork like individual bricks like this, do at least the first row with hot glue, and then you can move to PVA. I stick with hot glue, but as you can see, I got 2 rows on. It's all hot glued on, and I'm sticking with it. And right now, I just want to start working on bricking up the chimney because I know it can be tedious when I do this, so I just wanted to get it done and over with. Yes, individual bricks are a pain in the butt, but I just really prefer the way they look, so that's what I go with. But again, at this point, I could have easily switched over to a PVA glue and just spread it all over the place and individually start placing the bricks, and that would have been fine, but at this point, I don't know why I went with hot glue. I think just because I wanted to get it stuck on and kept on going. Because I like to go with a little rough look. And I think that way I just kind of stuck with the rough. Because sometimes I have to cut the bricks in half just to make it work right. And you want to make sure the bricks are in uneven rows because it doesn't. It was a pain. Now I have to cut a little piece of the house away here, because I want to get a couple rows of bricks going there behind the house just to show that the chimney is actually partially in the house. And at this point, I have to do that. I have to put bricks in there or it will not look right. But again, I'm sticking with hot glue, and it's just a lot of brickwork. Oh God, it's a lot of brickwork. But again, like I said, I think in the end I prefer the individual brickwork. It's just my preference, but it's a lot. And of course, once I got to the top of the chimney here, I wanted to actually go in a little bit, because that's what chimneys do. And just to close off the gap and, basically make a smaller hole up top. Of course, now I just want to glue on all the windows and kind of get an idea of where they're placed, and then paint some glue onto the back of them. If I really wanted to, I would have cut those little pumpkins and different things out of the windows, but I didn't feel like it, so I left them. And to be honest, they're not going to be seen. So I was like, no real point. So glue the windows on in all the different places that I want them. And of course, style of house like this, I'm going to put a lot more, different timber framing and basically timber work. Pieces of foam that I pulled out of that tub of pre-made stuff that I already had. And just basically glue it into place wherever I think it would look good. I'll do, all around all the edges and just a couple extra pieces here and there. Just so it looks good. I mean, you can overdo it if you want to, but I like to keep it to a minimum because I'm lazy. No, actually, I just want to go till I think it looks good and then call it quits. It's just a matter of proper trimming and then gluing the stuff in place. And of course, now I want to start gluing on the shingles. The first one, I'll just draw it in place and then glue it on. Paint a bunch of the wood glue on, slap it down, put another piece on, glue it in place, cut the excess off, and then move on. Each layer I'm going to kind of draw a line so I know where to go. And you want to make sure the shingles are offset from each other because you don't want a single line going the whole way up the roof, because it's not done like that to prevent water from actually getting down into the house. But again, it's just glue, place, trim, glue, place, trim, glue, Kind of monotonous, but it winds up working really well and looking good. And I do it up both sides, and then I'll do some on the top as well. Of course, now I'm using my homemade texture paste to do all the stucco work. It's just a matter of brushing on the stucco wherever you want it. This paste is really cheap and easy to make, and it lasts a long time. Even if it does dry out, just add a little more PVA to it, and then it revitalizes it. But right now, I'm just quickly brushing it on in anywhere that stucco needs to go. And if you don't like the way if it looks too rough, once you're done painting it on, you can take a flat bristle brush and dump it in water and then brush that over, and it'll smooth it out a little bit for you. It's easy. This stuff is easy to work with. It's just a matter of working it. And of course, now that the stucco is all dry, it's time for the Mod Podge, the black Mod Podge. The shingles, I'll paint this whole entire thing with the black Mod Podge, but the shingles desperately need it because they are incredibly thin and in their current state fragile. So a protective coating of Mod Podge will definitely strengthen them up and help protect them. But again, I'm just kind of slapping it all on everywhere, and everything will get a coat of this. Of course, now I'm going to start with, a basic gray for the shingles here. It's a dark gray and brown combo, like I used on the trees. But again, it's just a matter of trying to get a 100% base coat on this, just to get it in to where I need it to be. And if you can see, I did put some timbers on top to hide the seams for where the two sets of shingles met together. It's a little trick that people use. And of course now I want to actually start working on the stone while the shingles dry. I'm just using a dark blue-gray as my base coat and try and get close to 100% coverage on all these bricks. And now I'm going with a mid-tone on the shingles, which is basically a mid-tone brown and a mid-tone gray mixed together. And I wanted to go with more all earth color, or mainly earth colors for this. So, browns, grays, stuff like that. Except for when I get for one step, which will come up. But this is just an overbrush. Now it's clown puke time. This is where I paint on like all wonky, weird colors, and by the time you're done, it's going to look like a clown puked. I want a little bit of variation into the bricks, so I'm just painting on different colors here and there. And like I said, just to get a little variation. But by the time I'm done, you won't really be able to see it, as I've said before in previous builds. But it'll make a difference, and it just gives it a more realistic look, I guess. I don't know. I just think it looks cool, and it's a step I like to do, and I call it clown puke. Because by the time, like I said, by the time you're done, it looks like a clown puked. Of course, I'm using a light gray and light tan combo to do, this is basically working out to a heavy dry brush. And making sure I hit all the edges and different textures in the shingles here. But again, this is just a real heavy dry, not a real heavy dry brush, but a dry brush. And getting everything, making all the different textures and stuff that I made pop. Of course, I'm using a medium gray here, and I want to do an overbrush on all the bricks. I know I'm jumping around a lot, but that's just sometimes how projects get built. While you're waiting for one section to be done, you'll work on another section. You'll bounce around a lot on a build. So you won't do one specific spot. You'll just basically do different sections, and it works. But again, this is an overbrush, and it's killing down the tone of the clown puke. And now, again, I'm going to be doing a heavy dry brush, or dry brush on all the bricks, and it's going to tone down the clown puke even more. Why do we do it? Like I said, again, I just like a little variation to the bricks, and you won't just be staring at a big blob of gray. And it creates visual interest. So, it's definitely worth doing. So if you're going to do this, I would suggest you do it, like I said, just for that visual pop. And of course now, I remembered, I have to do all the timber framing. So I'm just using my standard wood dark brown. And this is also a color I use for dirt too, but it works, whatever. And I'll go with a mid-tone brown and do an overbrush on all the timber work that I just did. Real quick, real easy. And now I'm going to bounce around again and black out all the grading for the windows. Because I'm going to add a different color on, I just want to have a black base. And of course, I'm using that nutmeg or the mid-tone brown that I like to use, and it's actually going to be the base color for all the stucco because I want it to be lighter than all the timber framing, so they stand out against each other. But again, this is just anywhere there's stucco, it's going to get a coat of the mid-tone brown, or well, the base color in this case. And of course, again, I'm bouncing around. But again, I'm going to use the mid-tone brown and overbrush all the timber and woodwork areas. Like I said, this is just an overbrush, maybe like 75-85% coverage, leaving all the dark, deepest recesses alone. And now I'm moving on to a light brown or tan, or well, in this case, light mocha, and doing a heavy medium dry brush on all the timber areas, just to make all the textures and goodies pop so and they look good. The reason I'm doing, you'll see the reason I'm doing heavy instead of a real light soon. And here it is. I'm taking a dark brown homemade wash and just drenching this whole thing in it. I wanted to have like a dirty, nasty look to it. Like it hasn't been looked at in a long time or taken care of. Like, the look I'm kind of going for is not like ruined, but abandoned. Recently abandoned. It hasn't been taken care of recently. So it's gotten dirty and it's just kind of nasty. And this also, just works its way into all the crevices and whatnot. And it works. And of course, now I'm grabbing the light mocha again, and I want to do a quick light dry brush on all the woodworking and timber framing. And you're like, well, why bother doing that if you're going to cover it all with snow? As well, at the moment, I wasn't exactly sure how much and where the snow I was going to put on. So, at this moment, I'm treating it like this part may not get snow. So, and of course, I went with the light mocha and light gray combo and just started doing a quick light dry brush on all the shingles to bring back all the highlights and textures and whatnot. And of course, now I'm grabbing my light gray and I'm going to do a quick light dry brush on all the brickwork. For here, I'm working from top down just to make sure that give it kind of like a highlighting effect to it, as well as bringing up all the textures. And especially with the chimney area, I dry brush in the direction, so from the top of the chimney down in that direction, like the sunlight's hitting it and whatnot, and it keeps in with some of the shadows. Of course, now I got to start working on the stucco area again. And I realized I never actually did an overbrush or a highlight with this. Like, oh well, screw it. I'm going to continue on. And I'll just do an overbrush here. Hopefully it works. But again, something I forgot to do and just kind of worked around it. Mistakes and things you forget happen. You can always work around mistakes. Happy little accidents. So I'm using light mocha. I'm going to do a quick mid-tone kind of deal here. As I was in the process of doing this, though, I was using, dry brushing it or heavy dry brushing it on. I was looking at it, I was like, this looks good enough. My original intentions was to dry brush with like antique or basically kind of off-white type of deal, just as a real quick highlight. But then I was like, as I was in the process of doing it, it's like, it looks different enough from the timber, even though I'm using the same colors, it still has a distinct difference. So I was like, screw it. This is the last color I'm putting on. It looks good enough. And that's the thing. It's like, if you intend to do something more, but you think, hey, this looks good enough. This actually looks pretty good as is. Don't go any further. And of course, I'm going to use a copper color here for all the windows, because it's something I want to do to them later. But it stands out from the rest of the building, but it still blends in enough. You know what I mean? And I wanted to do some patina, like, you know, again, anything that I painted the copper color on, I'm going to do the patina. But basically, you slop it on, and then you wipe some of it off, and you'll get that nice patina, like greenish look to it. I just wanted something that looked like it was old, it hadn't been really cleaned or taken care of. And of course now I'm going to use some homemade pigment powder, and just in areas that would gather dirt and dust and whatnot, just kind of slap it on. I'm going to it may look a little heavy, but once I'm done, it won't look so heavy. You know, just more look like shadows, and like, again, anywhere that dirt would have gathered. But also, it's like a lot of these spots that I'm doing, I'm covering up with snow later. But again, it's like, what during this part of the process, I wasn't 100% sure where the snow was going to go. I usually decide that on the go, so I don't want to have to back up later and do this. So just do it as I can. And of course, I'm going to mist it down with some isopropyl alcohol just to lock it in place. If I don't do this, it's going to all rub off, and basically it's like, why did I bother doing it? And doing this will actually cut down on how dusty it looks, so that's why I go kind of heavy. Now, I made a bunch of door handles a really long time ago. Again, but they work. So I'm just drilling a hole into the base plate of the door handle, putting the little tip here into some PVA. Then I'm going to stick it into the hole real quick and glue it in place. And boom, door handle. And of course, the snow. I'm basically just painting on some PVA, straight up PVA, wherever I want snow to be. And yeah, now I'm covering up all that work I did. Yeah, well... And I'm sprinkling on some Woodland Scenics snow flock, tapping it in place. then topping it off. Rinse and repeat until I'm done putting snow any place that I want it to be. This is step one of my snow process. But again, it's how I like to do it. It works for me, you know. Woodland. This, like I said, this is Woodland Scenic Snow Flock. It's a bit on the gritty side, and yeah, it may look good right now, but you got to remember the glue will dry clear. So now this is step two. This is a Elmer snow flocking that I got out of a make your own slime kit, but I want to put a second layer of snow on. As you can see, it's all the Woodland Scenic Snow Flock, and the glue is dried clear, so now it's a lot more see-through, and I don't quite want that, not in every single spot. So I'm putting this Elmer's snow flocking on that is much finer, almost like a powder fine. And again, just a second layer and glue, sprinkle it all on, then tap it off. And just to seal it in place, I'm going to hit all the snow with some matte sealer, because for this stuff, the way I put it on, it just does not, it can easily brush off. So just hit it with some matte sealer, seal it on, and you don't have to worry about it brushing off too easily. Now, I want to give some little highlights here and whatnot on the snow. So I'm using some white pigment powder, which is basically the soft pastel chalk scraped into a powder. And just wherever I want to get a little bit of highlight, like the snow is thicker there, just brush it on. And then once I'm done brushing it on, I'll grab my isopropyl and a mister and then spray it down and lock it in place. Icicle time! Of course, again, I'm using the Green Stuff World UV resin. Put out a few dots here, and then just scrape it out or tease it out into the form of an icicle. I'll do this over and over again. And I forgot I had this little jewelry thing, UV light, and this was a lot easier than using the little flashlight thing that I had before. So I'll just use this, and I'll have to go multiple times. I think I can do this is like 99 seconds or whatnot, or 90. It's 90 seconds, and then I'll just run it through a few cycles, and then I'll have my icicles. Of course, I did a bunch of icicles, and I did some that was multiple icicles together. And now I'll just rub it in some uncured, rub the tips into some uncured resin, place it where I want it, grab my handy dandy UV flashlight, and then just cure it in place. And do that over and over and over again. There's a lot of icicles on this one, so I get to do it a lot. Of course, I'm grabbing my handy dandy Green Stuff World Liquid Frost. It's Frost Effects. It gets like all crusty and whatnot once you paint it on a smooth surface. Because, the icicles, they're there, but they're completely clear and they don't really pop, or you can't really see them. So I paint the Frost Effects on, gives it like a white haze and a little flakes of white tear. And it makes all the icicles really show up. So, yeah. I'm painting on the Frost Effects. And, there are spots I'll paint on bricks and around snow and stuff, too. But again, this is mainly for the icicles. I'm really happy with how this turned out, and the fact that it's going to fit in so perfectly with my other winter terrain. All the icicles wound up looking pretty good. I'm happy with how the snow looks in most of the places. Like I said, I'm just very happy with how this turned out. Definitely, probably one of my most favorite buildings I've ever made. So, again, you see, it works perfectly with my other winter terrain. Hey everybody, if you made it this far, it means you watched it to the end, and being that it was a long one, I cannot thank you enough. So thank you very much. If you liked the video, hit the thumbs up. If you want to see more, click subscribe. There's also a link down below to my Discord. Come to my Discord and post pictures of your winter builds. I would love to see them. Again, guys, this was a fun build, and I did appreciate the fact that I was actually putting all the snow effects on during the snowstorm. But again, guys, if you want to do a winter build, it's not that hard, and will look good on the tabletop. So, but go do it. Try it out. And please come to Discord and post pictures. But always remember, guys, when you're making your terrain, it doesn't matter what season or whatever you do, the only person you got to worry about is you, because it's your terrain.